All right, and joining me now on the phone is Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Secretary Clinton, thanks for joining me.
Good to talk to you. Thanks a lot.
So Donald Trump today said he raised at least $5.6 million for veterans charities. He provided an accounting of those donations. Your campaign says, quote, nobody should be fooled by this stunt. What do you mean?
Well, I think the problem here is the difference between what Donald Trump says and what Donald Trump does. He's bragged for months about raising $6 million for veterans and donating $1 million himself. But it took a reporter to shame him into actually making his contribution and getting the money to veterans. So look, I'm glad he finally did, but I don't know that he should get much credit for that.
Take a listen to Mr. Trump from today's press conference.
Find out how much Hillary Clinton's given to the veterans. Nothing.
What's your response to that? What have you given to veterans charities? And more broadly, what have you done for veterans?
Well, I, of course, have given money to veterans charities. And John McCain and I actually helped raise funding for the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund at Brooke Army Medical Center to build a rehabilitation facility for veterans to get the very best world-class rehabilitation services. I've also worked, starting as First Lady, to deal with some of the problems veterans had, whether it was Agent Orange or whether it was the mysterious illnesses they were bringing back from the Gulf War. I worked as a senator on the Armed Services Committee on many things, for example, increasing death benefits for families of the fallen from just $12,000 to $100,000. And I worked with Senator Lindsey Graham to expand health care to National Guard and Reserve members. And so much of the work that I've done has meant tens of millions of dollars in increased benefits to veterans and their families, as well as a personal commitment.
Historically speaking, throughout your decades in public life, you and your husband have had occasionally contentious relationships with journalists, though it certainly never went as far publicly as it did today, with Donald Trump calling journalists sleazy and dishonest and unfair. So what went through your mind watching his press conference today?
Well, I have to say, Jake, I had my team check. I have done nearly 300 interviews just in 2016. And I believe that it's important to continue to, speak to the press, as I'm doing right now, and to understand that his attacking everybody, fellow Republicans, Democrats, the press, you just name it, he attacks everybody, is a recipe for gridlock in Washington. And that's what we've got to break and get away with. He seems to believe, or at least is demonstrating, that insulting and attacks is his mode of operations. And, I just don't think that's going to cut it if you want to actually produce results for the American people and not only lead at home, but lead the world.
You do interviews, and you're calling in right now, obviously, and we appreciate that. But it has been pointed out to me that it's been something like 5 or 6 months since you've held an actual press conference. Is that something you're going to remedy soon?
Oh, I'm sure we will. Look, I was shocked myself that I've done nearly 300 interviews, and they're not even sure they've captured all the ones that I've done. But I believe that we do and we should answer questions. Of course I'm going to, in many, many different kinds of settings.
I want to turn to the Inspector General's report about your private email server, which you said you set up for convenience. In an editorial out today, USA Today called this, quote, a threat to national security, one that she repeatedly ignored despite multiple warnings. And they added that you are now, quote, going to have to convince voters that she can put the national security of the United States above her own short-term self-interest. Do you see this as a challenge that you have to face to convince voters you'll put national security ahead of your own interests?
Well, I think that is obvious. I always have. And the report, just to go back to the actual report, makes it clear that personal email use was the practice under other secretaries of state, and that the rules that they are now referencing were not clarified until after I had left. But look, I've said many times it was still a mistake, and if I could go back, I would do it differently. And I understand people may have concerns about this, but I hope voters look at the full picture of everything I've done in my career and the full threat posed by a Donald Trump presidency. And if they do, I have faith in the American people that they will make the right choice here.
Final question, Secretary Clinton. Thanks so much again for calling in. Senator Sanders is mounting such a strong challenge in California that you've moved around your schedule to spend more time there, though mathematically you'll likely clinch the number of delegates needed even if you don't win the California primary next week, if one includes superdelegates. You've talked a lot about the Democratic Party needing to unify and what happened 8 years ago with you and Senator Obama. Learning from that experience, what's one thing you would like Senator Sanders to do to help unify the Democratic Party? And what's one thing you're willing to do to reach out to his supporters?
Well, Jake, first let me say that I am going to campaign hard. I'll be in New Jersey tomorrow. We're campaigning hard in all the states that are upcoming. But clearly, California is a big state, and I am going to do everything I can to meet as many voters as possible. I was proud today to be endorsed by Governor Jerry Brown, and we're going to keep working as diligently and as tirelessly as we can to get as many voters to turn out and vote for me next Tuesday. But your question is an important one, and I have said repeatedly, I will certainly do everything I can to unify the Democratic Party. Our campaigns have been reaching out to one another. We will continue to do that. And once the primaries are over, as of next Tuesday, we will begin talking in more detail about what we can do to unify the party, because as I've said many times, and as Senator Sanders has said, we both are going to do everything we can to prevent Donald Trump from getting anywhere near the White House.
Madam Secretary, thanks so much for calling in. We look forward to having you back sometime soon.
Thanks a lot. Good to talk to you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And this programming note, Donald Trump will be my guest this Sunday on State of the Union. That's 9 a.m. and noon Sunday. Right here on CNN. Let me turn to our panel right now just to talk about some of the things we heard. What struck you, Amanda, from what you just heard from Secretary Clinton?
I think she got caught up in Donald Trump's game of playing who gave more to the vets. She should have said, I can repay the vets by being a strong commander-in-chief and talking about those qualifications rather than talking about the money aspect. And what about you, Hillary? What did you think? Do you agree with Amanda?
Well, I think there are so many more things she could do for the vets than Donald Trump. It was probably a pick from a long list. But in particular, I think this is very important for Democrats to hear from Secretary Clinton this week, that she cares about Bernie Sanders voters, that she cares about what Bernie Sanders brings to the table, and she's going to work hard to make sure we are a unified party going into the fall.
And Amanda, what about her answer on the email server when I asked about that quote from USA Today about needing to convince voters to put that she'll put her national security ahead of her own personal interest? She says she always does that.
Yeah, well, she keeps flying back on the thing. Other people have done this, and everyone knows that the bad thing was that she set up her own private email server. What she needs to do to convince voters that they can trust her in the future is show that she would not do this again as president of the United States. And so far, nothing that she said convinces me of that.
Oh, I think she said that repeatedly, and I think she said it was a mistake, and I think voters know that she cares more about the national security of this country than any other candidate right now, and the most qualified to be commander-in-chief for that reason.
Hillary Rosen, Amanda Carpenter, thanks to you both. That's it for The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper. Turn you over to Wolf Blitzer in the Situation Room. Thanks for watching.